All right, so welcome everyone to our Save Girls Sports webinar. We are hoping to start hosting more webinars like this because I know myself, Sonia, and Advocates for Faith and Freedom, and for sure Riley gets a lot of messages from parents. I've even heard from athletes themselves about what they're facing today, having to or being expected to compete against boys, having to have their private changing space robbed by boys. I don't even want to tell you some of the messages I've received because it makes me so angry what girls are having to go through today, and specifically and especially in California. So we have decided that we're going to fight to save girls' sports here in California, and we're just going to do it until it's done. Even when it feels hopeless because of the corrupt laws, we're going to keep going because our girls, our daughters, our female athletes are worth it. And I think probably all of us on were athletes at one point. I could never imagine what's happening today, happening when I was in high school playing basketball. I really can't. And so the least I can do is be a voice for the girls who I know are just mortified by what's happening, but they're scared to say anything. And I can understand that. So anyways, we are Advocates for Faith and Freedom who are hosting this. We are a legal ministry in SoCal who fights for religious liberty and constitutional rights. Many of you know my story. I was fired from a SoCal school district here for simply stating that I wouldn't let boys in my girls' locker room. And that is when I found advocates and they fought my case for a whole year. And we came to a great settlement victory that definitely sent a message across the nation that teachers and coaches should be standing up right now for what's right. It was absolutely worth it to do what I did, even though I lost my job. And the settlement, I think, certainly proved that. And then the Lord just gave me a platform to keep fighting for what's right. So I'm honored to work for Advocates now, and we just want to equip all the other warriors out there, all the parents, teachers, and coaches on how to fight back because it's a little tricky here in California. The law is not exactly on our side, but it doesn't mean we don't fight. So I'm gonna turn it over to Riley Gaines. We're so happy that this hero of our nation and really the world is here to give us a little encouragement on saving girls sports, because if anyone knows what that looks like, it is her. So I'm going to turn it over to Riley, and then from there we're going to dive into action steps on what exactly we need to be doing to save girls sports here in California.
Well, that was just about the kindest intro ever. You guys seriously are heroes to me. I feel indebted to you all. Some of you on this panel have been fighting much longer than I have. But nonetheless, here we are. We are fighting the fight, pushing forward with full steam ahead. And we have seen many victories over the past few months for sure, going back to November 5th. Things would look very different right now had November 5th not gone the way that it did. But I largely believe it was as successful as it was because people have had enough with the absurdity. Sorry, my husband is like turning on lights and stuff.
Oh,
One of those wins, those big wins, of course, being President Trump issuing, many executive orders, one declaring there are only men and women, male and female, those are the only two sexes. Another one being the executive order barring men from competing in women's sports, which is huge. Again, and this is a really big first step in, of course, maintaining the integrity of sports and reality itself. But I trust the people on this call know that that does not mean we can just wipe our hands and consider the war on woke to be won, because that is unfortunately not the case. This executive order, number one, it does not absolve states from passing legislation and doing what they need to do to ensure good statutes and laws within the state. And it doesn't prevent someone else from entering into the Oval Office in 4 years, God forbid, and undoing this executive order just as quickly as it was instated. So we need both chambers of Congress to move this legislation through to hopefully get on President Trump's desk to sign as a law, which we already saw this fail in the Senate. It passed the House, it failed in the Senate, didn't reach the 60 vote hurdle that it needed. So again, more work to be done there. But I want to, again, that's just kind of the legal boring mumbo jumbo to it. I want to tell you why you should feel hopeful, number one, um, because I feel so hopeful. Where we are right now, this is by far the most hopeful and optimistic I have felt about the future than at any point over these past few years. The public opinion and the pressure that we are seeing being put on, again, whether it's elected officials, whether it's these unelected bureaucrats who are, reinterpreting words to mean what they want them to mean, the public pressure that we are seeing is paramount. We see the polls, people say this is an 80-20 issue. I would argue it's higher than that. So that's why you have people like Governor Newsom coming out now and saying, look, I was so shocked by this. He said, not only is this issue unfair, he went as far as to say it is deeply unfair. I mean, this was really the first prominent Democratic figure who we have seen say this. And what has ensued from it is like the Democratic Party civil war of 2025. We have seen several other Democratic leaders come out and condemn him for such statements. We have seen others, like Senator Tester, former Senator Tester of Montana, go on Bill Maher. I mean, if you want to call it courage, I don't think it's courage because again, it seems like kind of like a fair weather fan thing to say. But who has Senator Tester consistently voted in opposition of protecting women and girls in sports. But then he goes on Bill Maher and says, look, the idea of men and women's sports is absurd. And I think we wouldn't have seen that, of course, 2 years ago. Again, take it for what it is. I think everyone can see Gavin Newsom and exactly what he's doing, which is, I mean, I think he made his pledge for a 2028 presidential run very, very clear. That's, I mean, to me, certainly what he is angling to do. But nonetheless, he said it. I know it feels not hopeful in the state of California. I live in Tennessee, which is a bastion of freedom, so it seems. We have a ton of Californians moving to Nashville like every single day. And every time I talk to them, it's people who say, look, we couldn't do it anymore. We had to get out. It's these policies. Our kids are in school. We didn't want to continue putting them through that. And of course, I understand the position where they're coming from. I can only imagine as a mom what that internal torment and decision making has to be like. But I have so much admiration for the people who stay and who fight, because if you guys don't,
Yeah.
who in the world will?
Yep.
So there is legislation introduced in the state of California by Representative Sanchez to hopefully get this onto the governor's desk, which who knows what he would do then. But of course, transparently and very honestly, it is not going to move through committee or pass either chamber. But that doesn't mean there is, again, not a way for your voice to be heard. I think an option that could be very successful in the state of California is a ballot initiative, which is something that I would love to talk to the people on this panel about, maybe even after this at some point over the next few weeks, and what this looks like and how we really mobilize, again, the people. How do we give the Californians across the state who have had enough with Gavin Newsom and his progressive policies, how do we give them a voice? Which again, I believe, of course, even is the majority of a state like California. So that's something that I believe is in the works slowly and could be very successful. It's an expensive effort for sure in terms of the finances it would require to fulfill the obligations that come with a ballot initiative. But nonetheless, I think this could be successful in the state. So would love to talk to the panelists about that. And if anyone has any questions or anything they want to throw in the chat as well, I'll be happy. I'll stay on the next few minutes and would be happy to answer. So again, just very grateful for you guys, for what you're doing, for those of you who have stayed in California and continued to put your foot down because it's a state worth fighting for. Your kids, your daughters are worth fighting for. So thank you guys.
Amen. That was so good. So encouraging. I always say you never go wrong when you stand for what's right. And so we just have to keep doing that until we see some give. So let's go ahead and dive in. We'll keep an eye on the chat for a little bit just to see if anyone has a question for Riley. I know it's really late for you, so feel free to hop off whenever you need to. Someone asked what a ballot initiative does. And we did try this once, right, Sonia? We tried the ballot initiative thing, Protect Kids California, right?
You saw what Bonta did with the wording, right? That's still in a lawsuit and litigation. Ballot initiatives are great, but you have to have, like Riley said, you have to
Yeah.
have money and you have to have people behind it. So I
It's a
definitely would
big
love to
grassroots
chat after
effort.
this. I mean, let's try to work on something. If we
Yeah, let's go round two.
we have the warriors on the ground. We have people
Yeah.
ready. We're raising more awareness. Alongside that, we have an option to finally get these people out of office, right? So I think there's a two-prong to that. Get a ballot initiative and stop letting these people get in office. I know we're dealing with voter ID and that's a whole different conversation. But we do, I mean, I'm proof at the local level, you could still be elected, right? So we just got to fight the good fight on both of those.
A ballot initiative, for those that don't know, it's essentially garnering signatures. I don't know exactly the number you need. It's different for every state, but you need a certain number of signatures. They cannot be collected digitally. Again, that's why it requires a lot of volunteers,
Yeah.
people showing up at, Chargers games or whatever it is, these environments where typically there are large crowds or people who would be willing to sign on to some sort of initiative. It's either tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. I believe it's probably hundreds of thousands of signatures that are needed. All have to be verified, all have to be from the state of California. But again, if it reaches that number, then it puts this issue on the ballot. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we tried Protect Kids California, we had 3 initiatives on it. One of them was to save and protect girls' sports and spaces. And I think we needed to collect 500,000 signatures, somewhere in the 500,000. And I think, do you know what we hit, Sonia? Wasn't it in the four?
Yeah, and I at the same token, you would have to start in time. I mean, there's so much detail into it, but again, if this is something that we're all like, I think we're serious about,
Yeah.
we need to get into it and get the grassroots activated. I think, again, this is something that we can definitely change here in California. And that would be definitely an option, right?
And I think since we tried it last, since we tried Protect Kids California last, it's been a year or two. So there's been a lot of movement. There's been a lot more people wake up. And so I could see it being successful this time around. So yeah, I would love to chat with you, Riley, more on that later on. But okay, let's go ahead. What do you think, Julianne? Should we dive into our little PowerPoint and get everyone these action steps?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint for you guys.
and I'll just answer this last one really quick.
Yeah,
Basically,
please.
how when you're wearing this gear, whether it's XXXY or any sort of apparel that says keep women's sports for women, or anything that could be seen as provocative or whatever it is, let me tell you, it doesn't matter where in the country I am, I always, without a doubt, get tenfold more support than I do pushback. And the
Yeah.
only kind of pushback I get, because again, most of the time, these people outside of social media really are cowards, right? I
Mhm.
mean, they don't have and they don't have an argument. All they have is mean, looks or petty personal attacks. But that's it. They'll cut an eye at me, which like, ooh, like. But the people who come out of the woodworks to say, this is awesome, I love your shirt, or they wink or they whisper, whatever it is so much more than the people who don't. So.
Yeah.
And I'll also add just real quick on the ballot initiative. I mean, webinars like this and events like this is where we start rallying the grassroots and start getting people who align and believe, that it's important to stand up for girls and our female athletes. And so, the hope is that moving forward with the current administration that we have, that continues to rally more people to take a stand and realize that they're not alone in this. And so hopefully moving forward, we could see something like a ballot initiative in California. So, well, this is only the beginning.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And courage is contagious. I mean, look on this call, look at the women that are on this panel. I'm inspired. It gives me so much hope because it just takes one and then you see more and more and more come to the fight, and it's a beautiful thing. And that's what needs to happen throughout our state.
That's right. All right, so we're going to go over 5 ways to fight back against boys and girls sports and locker rooms. And I wish I could say that this is not even happening, but it is. It is. Just this weekend, we watched a boy again here in SoCal steal the first place spot from a girl in Norco. I've been working all week to get connected with her and her parents so we can let her know we stand with you and we're fighting with you, and here are some steps you can take. You don't have to settle with this as the new normal. Because sadly, that's what these female athletes are being told. This is just the way it is now. Go out there, do your best. And sadly, a female's best most of the time is not going to be able to compete with a male's best. So we're gonna go ahead and, can I move the slides or?
I can move them through.
Okay.
So, yep.
All right, so very first one. So I'm just going to kind of paint a scenario, right? So if at your school district, this is going on, or even if it's not at your school district, because obviously school districts compete against each other. So if you're aware of a situation at a school district where a boy is competing in girls' sports, it's affecting your female athletes, your daughter, the first thing you want to do is file a complaint with your school district. So I'm going to let Sonia Shaw, she is school board president of Chino Valley, and she's also got some bigger things in the work that I'm super excited about for the state of California. But she's going to go over this one because she is definitely the pro with school districts.
Yes, I mean, we'll go also about how it's important to go to school board meetings later, but I just want to kind of emphasize the importance of people actually doing the groundwork. Because again, I come from a parent who then ran for school board, and I didn't even know what a school board member was until we showed up at a school board meeting, just like most of us, are finding out how to advocate and finding these people. We want them to be the big voice. And I'm telling you that not only as a parent, but as a school board member, we need the community behind us when we're fighting these big fights. We absolutely need our community to be the voice as well. I think the school board has um, a superpower to be the biggest voice because they're covering that whole community in which they were elected in, right? And that's why we need to hold them accountable and push them to be that voice for us. But these things are what we need as school board members to be able to be brave and bold and say and do the right thing, right, for our girls. This is something simple you can do. Filing a complaint with your school district. Remember, like every school district is kind of different, but by California law, we should all have on our websites, if you go to that specific school district. Now, again, if it's not your school district and it's a school district that your girl had to, or another girl had to compete against, go on their website. We can use Chino Valley as an example if you guys are online. If you go to Chino Valley's, and you can go afterwards and just kind of explore your different school districts. We, on our front page, actually have Title IX, and you click that and it'll literally tell you the laws, and the guidelines. And we, in our district, actually have a Title IX coordinator. I'm not aware that if every district has that, but you should have somebody. And if not, HR is always the best person, or student support services. We have it on the slide, kind of who you would direct your email to. I would suggest always putting something in writing, being as detailed as possible, and letting them know you're filing a complaint. When you file a complaint, especially in this direction, whether it's valid or not, the school district has the responsibility now to investigate that complaint, right? Because this is something that should be taken serious. And most districts should not dust under the rug. You can be held responsible for really big things as a school district. So when you put this in writing and you're saying you're filing a Title IX complaint, putting names, putting your email, your phone number, that will get the process started. Now, again, we know that California has a law that obviously protects this situation, but we also have Title IX, that Trump changed to help start this process. And without the claims and the complaints, we cannot do anything. Nobody knows about quote unquote anything. We could see it on the news, but nothing is being done on the ground. And if you don't do anything on the ground, we cannot even, be a voice to try to figure out what is possibly legally possible next, right? Because then at that point, that initiates the district to have to get with their attorneys and explore what the complaint is. So always make sure to be detailed. And if you don't get a response within a few business days, follow it up with a phone call. And then if you still don't get a response in writing, follow it up again in another email. But then I would say then you go through the chain of command.
Yeah.
Always say go first to the person that is supposed to be notified of the complaint, which in this case with Title IX would be your school district and, you know, either your coordinator or HR. If you're not getting a response from them, then include the superintendent. Remember, superintendent is the boss of the school district.
Mhm.
Now, if the superintendent is not responding to you, I would then go to the board. Okay, that's just the chain of command. If you really want to raise noise, you can do it. But then if you tell the board right away, they're going to have the chain of command go down that way anyways. So I always suggest going through the chain of command. And then if you need to get to the board, and then the board then has the responsibility to make sure whoever's below it, because the board is now the boss of the superintendent, right? But generally speaking, when you're talking about complaints of discrimination, harassment, and Title IX, those are to be taken very serious by a district. And I would find it very disturbing if a district doesn't respond to those claims. They could set themselves up for a big lawsuit.
Yeah. So good. All right. Yeah, Julianne.
Go ahead.
Julianne, she's one of our lawyers here at Advocates for Faith and Freedom, my favorite lawyer because she was my lawyer. She is going to go over filing a Title IX complaint now with the Department of Education. So you'll want to do both of these. First, start again at the place where the issue is actually happening, but you'll also want to do this one and alert the Department of Education, especially now, again, that we've had these changes come through and really things are moving in a better direction. And I believe this is the department that would then hopefully kickstart an investigation into whatever district is violating Title IX. So go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so as Sonia mentioned, you can start with your school district filing that complaint. And if the school district is not responsive, or even if they are, this is another action step that you can take to hopefully remedy whatever situation. So again, keep in mind the context of this is assuming that your student, your female athlete is having to compete against a male athlete, or there's a male athlete on the girls' team, and so your daughter is affected by the school's decision to allow a biological male on your daughter's team. And so you can then go ahead and file a complaint with the Department of Education. That's a federal agency, and they are responsible for giving these school districts tons of money. They receive federal funding. And so because school districts receive federal funding, they're required to follow federal law. And as has been mentioned, Title IX has been brought up, and just a little bit of context. So Title IX is the federal law that prohibits discrimination based upon sex. And President Trump has issued an executive order reaffirming the definition, the biological definition of sex. And really this dates back to the 60s, the 70s, when Congress passed Title IX to ensure that our females within the education system are protected, and that extends to our athletic programs. And so you've probably heard even from school districts say, you know, we're just following state law. We're allowing this boy to compete on the girls' team. Our hands are tied. We're following state law. And that's a very easy answer for school districts to give because it sounds official. But when there is federal law that conflicts with state law, our Constitution allows and requires federal law to trump state law. And so we not only have Title IX protections, but we also have the executive orders that Riley mentioned at the beginning of this call that prohibits boys from competing on girls' sports. And so again, you can now file complaints with the Department of Education, and this applies to any what the Department of Education calls covered entities. So that's going to be any public or private program that, again, receives federal funds. If any entity receives federal funding, they're required to abide by Title IX. Now, as far as who can file, anyone can file a complaint. The only caveat is if you are filing on behalf of someone, you will have to obtain their written consent or the guardian, the legal guardian or parent of that individual. So let's just say, you may not have any students in a school district, but you're aware that there's a boy competing on the girls volleyball team and you want to file a complaint. That would probably be the only limitation, unless you can find a female athlete who would be willing to step in kind of as the individual filing the complaint. You can fill out all the information, but you would then need to obtain the written signature of their parent or legal guardian. If you're a parent and you're filing on behalf of your student, then that's fine. You can go ahead and file on behalf of your female athletes. And then just kind of some nuts and bolts for timeliness. There's a 180-day time limit. So that's calculated from the last day of the known discrimination. So if you know that there's been a male athlete on the girls volleyball team and this has been ongoing, you want to go ahead and file that complaint right away, even if it's ongoing, or if it happened last season and maybe he's no longer on the girls volleyball team, you can still go ahead and file a complaint if it's within that 180-day time limit. And then as far as where to file, so there's actually, you can file in the local office in California, still part of the Department of Education, but you can file a complaint with the local office, or you can do the national office. There's really no difference. You can file, locally. The office is in San Francisco, but you can file online. And all of this information, again, we'll actually share with you all. I know it's kind of a fire hose of information, but you can go directly to the Department of Education's website, file your complaint online, and it will go directly to the Department of Education. And then just as Sonia mentioned, what to include, you want to be as detailed as possible. Paper trails are so important. I can't tell you enough times, even just from the litigation standpoint and being involved in different lawsuits, how much we rely on the paper trail of our clients, documenting everything, documenting conversations, documenting phone calls, who is a part of the phone call, who is a part of that discussion, who is a part of that meeting. You want to have a complete paper trail. And then when you go to file your complaint, being as detailed as possible, giving names, dates. Something that's also important is, for instance, if you know of a boy that's playing track and field and he's winning podium positions or taking placements, documenting each instance in which that boy has now taken these awards away from the other female athletes. So you can never have too much detail. So I would encourage you just to be as detailed as possible. So that's filing a complaint with the Department of Education. And then we'll go to our next action step. And to introduce this step, join Save Girls Sports Association. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but I want to go ahead and play this video, which really encouraged and was kind of the catalyst for this association.
The fight to save women's sports is not being blown out of proportion. Let's bring in California student athletes Taylor Starling and Caitlin Slavin, along with advocates for faith and freedom attorney Julianne Fleischer. Thank you all for coming on. Julianne, to you first to kind of set the stage here. The shirt said Save Girls Sports. The athletic director said it was like wearing a swastika in front of Jewish students, and then the principal later kind of affirmed that.
Yeah, that's correct. The athletic director told the girls that their shirts with this message, Save Girls Sports, created a hostile environment, and compared this message to the girls wearing a swastika, or any student wearing a swastika in front of Jewish students.
Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable. Caitlin, I want to go to you now, because not only is the athletic director and the principal's statement kind of outlandish and it's kind of ridiculous, the whole question here is you had no intention. You were not trying to be hateful at all, right?
Correct. I was not trying to be hateful by any means. And so the thought that someone else thinks we're being hateful was kind of sad to hear, because we didn't want to target nobody. And
we believe biological males should not be competing against females, and we were just saying what we believe.
Yeah, and the vast majority of the country also believes like you believe. I know you're in California, and I know it's a tough battle, but that's kind of where we stand. Now to you, Taylor, because you were taken off the girls' varsity top 7 to make room for this transgender student. How did that make you feel, and is that kind of why you started this, or overall you just disagree with this stance?
Yeah, when I got removed off of that top 7 varsity spot, it confused me so much because I was so confused why this transgender student got to race in my spot even when he wasn't attending most of the practices. And I have been attending every single practice, even when I was injured in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting, Julianne, because some on the other side are now accusing you of weaponizing civil rights to justify discrimination. What would you say to the people who think that way?
Well, ironically, the back of the girl's shirt say it's common sense. And really, this is all we're dealing with. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
We're trying to advocate and protect for the safety of our girls in our sports. That's common sense. We're not discriminating against anyone. These girls have worked really hard for the positions that they're in. And female athletes across the country deserve a chance in the sport that they've trained, they've worked long hours, long years of their life to be in the positions that they're in.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, the common sense department would agree with exactly what she said here. But Caitlin, when you look at this whole thing, I wonder what your family and what your friends are saying. Are they saying, you know what, you should stand strong and continue this fight, or are they giving you alternate advice?
Throughout this whole thing, we've had so much support and so many people telling us like good job and so many people on our side, and so it's just good to hear all this, whether it's them helping us or not. Like knowing that people are all supporting us is so good for me and Taylor to keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting, Taylor, because the same kind of question to you. Do people talk to you about this? Do you plan to stand and fight? Do you try to convince others in a very calm and diplomatic way to stand on your side?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are very supportive about this, especially people on my team.
A lot of students in California over the past 4 or 5 years, robust debate has been shut down. It's one of those things where some states foster debate. California doesn't appear to be one of them. It's an issue.
It absolutely is. And unfortunately, where our schools are supposed to be this place where ideas are exchanged, even unpopular ideas maybe, can be exchanged and discussed. And when you have an athletic director and a principal saying this message, Save Girls Sports, is hostile, that's an attempt by the school district to completely censor a message, completely censor discussion. And we want to encourage our young people to engage in these conversations. We don't need to have hatred and this vitriol associated with these conversations.
Yeah, Julianne, Caitlin, Taylor, best of luck to you all. We're going to keep our eye on this, and if something changes, we will bring you back on. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
The fight to save women's.
All right, so some of you may be aware of our lawsuit based out in Riverside County, where Taylor and Caitlin, these two cross-country athletes that attend high school out in Riverside, filed a lawsuit against their school district. And actually, since the timing of that interview aired, there's actually been some huge changes in the legal landscape and also just kind of factually of where that case stands. And so the interview did a good job of kind of covering the basis, but just to briefly recap, Taylor and Caitlin are cross-country athletes, and Taylor was on, she's a junior, she was on her varsity cross-country team, and a male athlete from another public school transferred to her high school. And so the athletic director removed Taylor from her varsity position and placed this male athlete in her position. That in and of itself is a problem, but just to add more insult to injury, this male athlete had not attended the majority of the practices. There had been 70 plus practices, and this this boy had attended maybe 13 of those practices. He did not qualify. He didn't qualify for the girls' team. He certainly didn't qualify for the varsity girls' team. And so Taylor was displaced from her varsity position. And out of that, really just a movement was born. Taylor and Caitlin ended up wearing those shirts, Save Girls Sports, and wore them to practice. And the athletic director told them they need to remove their shirts. And so what ended up happening is there was just a rallying behind Taylor and Caitlin. So many students stepped up in support of Taylor and Caitlin, wore these shirts advocating and for this message of saving girls sports. And so it's been incredible to see just the support that has surrounded Taylor and Caitlin. And Taylor and Caitlin are incredibly bold and courageous in taking this stand. They're on the front lines, just like many of your daughters are on the front lines. They're the ones that are having to show up to practice. They're the ones that are having to compete against boys. They're the ones that are having to share their spaces with boys. And so they're really on the front lines. And so out of this lawsuit, we ended up launching this association called Save Girls Sports. And really what it is it's a group of committed parents and students who are committed to the simple message of saving girls sports. We want to be able to advocate. We want to host webinars like this and really, be the voice, the leading voice in what it means to protect our female athletes. And we don't have to be in a conservative state. We can be right here in California advocating for this message. And so what's really neat is as this lawsuit has progressed and just given the legal landscape, we actually were able to add the Save Girls Sports Association to our lawsuit. So they are now a plaintiff in our lawsuit. And we're now able to challenge AB 1266, which is the state law that requires school districts to allow boys to compete on girls' teams and use girls' spaces. This is kind of the state law that many school districts are hiding behind and saying, we're just following state law. And so part of Taylor and Caitlin's lawsuit is a direct challenge to AB 1266. We're referencing Title IX, referencing President Trump's executive orders. And so I often say there's never a good time for a lawsuit, but really there couldn't be a better time for this type of lawsuit where we have, as Riley mentioned, we have public opinion, and now we have an administration that is leading the charge in common sense. And so one of the ways that you can get involved in addition to filing complaints is you can join the Save Girls Sports Association. And really all that means is that you're committed to advocating for our female athletes. If your daughter is personally affected, by this, you can also, share information within the association that might help further our legal challenge in terms of challenging AB 1266. You don't necessarily have to be a part of the lawsuit to join the association, but it's another way of showing your support for our female athletes. We're hoping to provide more resources for you all and for those that join the Save Girls Sports Association, and letting people know that this isn't okay, and we're not okay with it. And so you can join the association through our website, and you're welcome to, there's more information about Save Girl Sports and what we're hoping to do with it, but we would love to have you join. And then for the next action step.
I will just include too, AB 1266 has been in place for an entire decade, and it's never been challenged. That's crazy to me, that such a corrupt law has been standing for so long and we've not seen it challenged, but Advocates for Faith and Freedom has stepped up to do that. So that excites me. I find that very honorable, and we need everyone's partnership in this, because we've stepped up to be also on the front lines for your daughters, for female athletes, and we're gonna see it through, and hopefully this lawsuit can help to change state law. Mm-hmm. So Sonia and I are both going to speak a little bit on this next slide. I had never been to a school board meeting until I was fired, because honestly, I realized even what a school board was. And I learned that a school board actually had to approve of my firing. And so I learned they have some power. They really do. And so I started, after I was fired, showing up to school board meetings and basically just supporting school boards who were trying to enact the parental notification policy. So I went to Chino's historic meetings. I went to Murrieta Valley and Temecula Valley, and it was just kind of a thing I was doing for a little while, showing up and speaking at school board meetings. And I didn't realize how many parents don't do this for whatever reason. They're busy or they're scared, to speak. There's so many reasons, right? But for me, what I say is if you're gonna choose to have your child in public school, you have got to be showing up and having your voice heard at these meetings. Because if you're not voicing how you expect for your child to be educated and treated at school, if you're not voicing that to the school board, they're going to come up with, whatever it is that they think is best for your child. And so it's especially important for us conservative parents to be showing up, because it kind of seems like, from my experience doing this for the last couple of years, the other side seems to have all this time to show up. It's like they get paid for it, to these meetings. And so oftentimes, like, they are the very loud voice. They are the prominent voice in this, when in reality, that's not reflecting what is true. We are the majority who is against this corruption, but the majority can't be silent anymore. So show up to your school board meetings. There's one a month. And again, if you're in California, it's very likely that your school district is complying with AB 1266. So I zoomed over here from Hrupa Unified School Board meeting, because that is the school district right now who's allowing a boy to compete as a girl in track and enter girl spaces. And I'm on the receiving end of messages from parents and athletes about this. And I just couldn't sit silent. And so I showed up to the school board, to the school district that fired me 2 years ago. And I spoke on saving girls sports along with about 7 other people. And it definitely had an impact. You could see it on all of their faces. But I will say, as we wrapped up our public comment, the superintendent of the district did get on and say what we are hearing from most school districts, that we are just complying with state law. And if it changes, then we will change. But right now, we're complying with state law. And to translate that, what they're saying is, we're okay with boys competing against females and entering girls' locker rooms. And that's not okay. I made a video and I said, you have no business being on a school board if you're not going to stand for what's right, and you're just going to like rubber stamp things and say, I'm just following the law. You're there to protect, you're there to be a voice and fight for what's right. And so the pressure has to be put on. And that comes from us as parents and people in the community. And so we've really got to start showing up. I've showed up to school board meetings with parents who were like, will you come with me? I've never been before. I don't even know what to do. How do I fill out a card? How do I speak? How long do I have? Kind of walked her all through it, showed up with her. This mom ended up attending all the next meetings on her own, and then she ran for school board, and now she is sits on Murrieta Valley's school board. So it's so beautiful to just do it and get started and get activated, because it's always worth it. It's so worth it. So I'm going to let Sonia speak a little bit on kind of the end of being a school board president. This is just kind of my perspective on just kind of diving in and starting to show up to school board meetings and be a voice. And so I'll let Sonia go ahead and speak.
No, I think it's awesome because we all come from a point, well, especially you and I, that didn't know what a school board was. 5 years ago, I didn't know what a school board was. Somebody said, you need to go to the school board meeting and voice your concern about the shutdowns and masking and possible vax mandates. And I was like, where is it? What is it? Oh, you elect them. I'll be honest, I was not paying attention. I was not being a responsible citizen and voting the way that I should, for, various reasons. I don't want to get into that, but the point is, once I knew, I can't unknow. Once you
Right.
guys know, you can't unknow. And she mentioned your school board meetings are usually 1 to 2 a month. If you cannot attend them, watch them. Find a time. You all have screen time, I'm sure, that goes up hours and hours that you find time to get on there. Watch them, because watch the way those people that are making the most important decisions about your children, watch how they behave, watch how they respond, watch what's important to them. I've been to school board meetings all across everywhere in California, or have watched them, or have attended and make comments. And I sit there in disbelief now, knowing what I know as a school board president, diving head first and figuring out how this all works. It's absolutely mind-boggling on the things that they're focusing on and the things that they're not, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing, attend them. I promise you, if you don't have the right people, you're going to know pretty darn quick. You are also going to now be able to be part of the process of making sure you vote for the right people or get the right people to vote. And if you do not attend them, to make public comment, which we highly encourage, come on guys, that's 1 time a month we're giving you homework. But if you don't, email your board members and CC your superintendent. Do not let them get away with it. Look, Riverside County, I'm telling you right now, is super blessed. They have Castillo, they have Sanchez, they have Aceli, they have Isa. You guys have so many elected officials that agree with us on these situations. And that's one county, but I want to use them as an example. And their school boards in Riverside County refuse to work with their elected officials. Guys, I'm a school board president, and for 3 years straight, I have begged our elected officials, please sit down with me. As a parent, I did that. As a mom advocating, I did that. And now as a school board president, and they refuse to meet with me. They refuse to talk with me. And in fact, some of them have even wrote letters when we have been vocal about things in our own district, right? Take advantage of these opportunities to be involved. Your school board has a big voice. Now, somebody mentioned Kate Sanchez, I think it was Riley Gaines, about the bill that she has about CIF. Your school board may have to comply with law, but they can write a resolution. A resolution is a statement. And in that statement, it gives the school board authority, if passed, to then write support letters or letters of, non-support on the issue that is at bay. So we'll take, obviously, what we're talking about tonight, boys and the girls sports. You have a assembly bill proposed. School boards across California can, with your help, you can encourage them. And if they don't, get them out of there because they're not in the right seat for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Pass these resolutions. Your voice matters in that, because then you're going to see how they're going to respond to you. You're going to see how they keep saying it's the law. I will tell you, with Biden's Title IX, revisions that he wanted, and then Trump's. I was in this position for 3 years as a school board member, but I was also a parent encouraging them prior to write letters of non-support about Biden's changes. When I got in, we quickly, thank God our board supported it, but we quickly passed a resolution so we can write letters and we can make phone calls on behalf of the district if the board passes resolutions. That all comes with the support of the community. If we don't have the support of the community in these positions, we're not going to be the voice, right? There's no way we can be a voice. We can pass it. I could pass things all day long, but I need my community to also be making those phone calls alongside us. Look, I can go to a Capitol and testify as a school board member if I have the ability through these resolutions to represent us in these cases, right? So let's take Trump's changes for Title IX. We passed a resolution here in Chino that gives us the ability to now be a voice in this whole situation in my official capacity as well, not just as a mother. These things come from just you showing up, you holding your school board members accountable. I see Amanda here from Riverside School Board. She's amazing. She's brand new and she's in there being the voice. So many amazing things have been revealed through her just being there and parents showing up. We have parents, that are being vocal and asking for these resolutions, and their boards are unwilling to put these on there. Get them out, guys. These are local elected positions. We cannot use the excuse that we're pissed off and we're mad if we're not getting in there and being involved in changing those things. Your voice matters. Once or twice a month, either watch it, attend, make comments, and email your board. I'm telling you, the pressure, they do not like it. They don't like, if they don't agree with it, they do not like to be put on record. They'd rather just sign the dot of whatever the school board association and the unions are pushing down. You need to challenge them. You need to make them have the ability to be bold and courageous on your behalf. They are your voice. You elected them. And if they're not, get them out of there. But it all starts with attending school boards. That's how Chino, did what we did on certain issues, is because us parents were upset with our board members and we decided to do something about it. We're not the only ones. We have school boards all across California. California. We have Temecula, Marietta. Unfortunate what's happening in Yorba Linda. Guys, get involved. Orange County, get involved. Don't let these people take over on the most important things. I think with that said, I think I covered it all, but do not go without encouraging them to be your voice. And when they're not your voice, get the people in there that will be your voice.
And I'll just add to that, encourage your kids to show up at school board meetings too. This is their school district. These are their schools. And so bring your kids to these school meetings, let your kids speak during public comment. There's been so many videos that I know have gone on, circulated on social media of these brave students that are telling the adults to be adults and to take care of the children that they were entrusted to take care of. And so it's so powerful to hear these young voices to speak up and stand for their rights. It's unfortunate that they're having to even do that. But encourage your students. This is a family battle, even for Taylor and Caitlin. They're involved in this lawsuit, but it's required a lot of sacrifice for their entire family. But encourage your kids, and talk about these issues. So bring your kids to those school board meetings also.
Yeah, and someone said parent groups. Guys, this is where it all starts. Grassroots parent groups. We started one in Chino. Chino started, our direction in Chino was to connect with all the grassroots in San Diego, Temecula, Marietta, Orange, Hemet, throughout, even in Northern Cal. Your guys' parent groups are so important in this big fight. We cannot keep counting on the people in Sacramento, the bureaucrats, to do what they do. Yes, we have work to get them out of there and get the right people in. But at the same token, these grassroots parent groups, that's where it started. That's where a lot of us that are now school board members pissing off the biggest people up there in Sacramento, we're just parents from a parent group that just created because we were upset about a situation, right? I mean, that's how it all starts. And that's the beauty of it.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll move on to our last slide, I believe here. So just again, what Advocates for Faith and Freedom is, a pro bono law firm. And so that part's really important. It was really important for me as a teacher who was fired wrongfully. I was fired for staying true to my Christian beliefs, and definitely after losing my teacher salary, could not afford a lawyer. But then I learned about Advocates for Faith and Freedom, and they stepped in and defended me. And in May of 2024, we came to a settlement agreement with the district, and it was 3 times what they owed me since terminating me. So it was certainly justice, and it sent a message throughout the nation. There's a whole other side to this fight, right? And it's looking at teachers and coaches who are really, really like on the front lines of allowing this corruption, right? And so empowering and letting teachers and coaches know you don't have to be telling your athletes and your students that this is the new normal, go do your best. You can say no and you can stand for what's right, even if it comes at a cost, because it probably will. That doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do just because there's a cost to it. And so praise the Lord that there's Advocates for Faith and Freedom that steps in. And so if you need any legal help, you can fill out the form on our website. And we will just need your personal information, phone number, email address, and then a description of the legal issue that you are facing. But we are also just there to help with any questions that you might have on how to best move forward in a situation. Even before I was fired, I had reached out to Advocates for Faith and Freedom, and they gave me some advice on, how to move forward and what step I would take next if the district did end up terminating me. So they were helping me before I was even fired. And I do just want to add in too, because they are a legal ministry and a pro bono law firm, we really only can exist because of our donors. And so if any of our donors are on tonight, I just want to say thank you so much. Because of you, I was able to fight my case. Advocates was able to fight my case for me, truly only because of you, because you've chosen to link arms with us in fighting for faith and fighting for freedom, for California and for our nation. And quite frankly, if we don't have religious liberty and our constitutional rights, what are we? We're not even America anymore. And so fighting for faith and freedom is so important. And even if you're not a parent or a coach or a teacher and you're like, well, what can I do? Praying for us is the number one thing you can do, because we're in the courts with tip of the spear issues and we need the power of prayer, number one. But if you can donate, we need that as well, because there is a cost to these lawsuits. And quite frankly, we need to hire another lawyer, because there are so many issues coming up and people who are starting to take a stand and need our legal support. So we're so grateful for anyone who wants to partner with us. If you're not already, you can do that over on our website as well. And I think that's it. I will just go over a couple things I noticed in the chat that we didn't cover. So just to clarify on filing a complaint, if you're a parent or a child who is affected, are those the only people who can file a complaint? Only a parent of a child who's affected, or the actual student athlete? If I'm not directly involved, do I start at the district level rather than the federal complaint?
So I'll speak to filing with the federal, with the Department of Education. So anyone can file a complaint. The only caveat is that once the Department of Education receives your complaint, if you are not the person personally experiencing discrimination, they'll send you a letter immediately asking you to submit the signature of the person that is facing discrimination. So if it's a minor, they'll ask for the parent's signature on behalf of that minor. So you can submit it, but you're going to have the individual, you can fill it all out. You can be the point of contact with the Department of Education, but you would have to get that signature from either if it's a minor, which most likely you're going to be dealing with minors, that legal guardian or parent.
Okay. And then Sonia, when you spoke on, there was a question, I believe, from a board member or board president. I'm trying to find it. So when you spoke on making a resolution, they asked, is this for board policy when you talk about creating a resolution?
So a resolution, okay, board policy is something that obviously we have to comply by law, and it has to be lawful. And then it sets the pretty much the procedures for how a district will do things, right? Because you have your administrative regulations, your board policy all goes with it. It's like, let's just pretend we took the parental notification because it's easy to explain. We passed a policy saying parents are going to be informed. That's a policy. It is within the law, blah, blah, blah. We move forward. Now, let's just say, like with this, the boys and the girls sports, and we have AB 1266 that needs to be challenged. We still have some, struggles here. We cannot clearly come out and say that boys are not allowed in the girls' locker room anymore. We're not allowing it, because then we would knowingly be breaking the law, right? I mean, Julianne and Bob Tyler knows I would be the first one to bring that forward if I could. I'm like waiting for that moment. But what we can do is a resolution. A resolution is a statement from the board, pretty much covering the district. So we can put a statement saying there is a bill being proposed right now, and there is one by Sanchez, is which I use the example. We want to support her bill. If the board passes that, we can then send support letters. We can send people to testify. We can send emails. We can make phone calls on behalf of the district. not individual board. Like I could still do it as an individual, but then I could speak on behalf of the district, and our district can then speak on behalf of the district in regards to that situation. It's a more powerful thing when you can write support letters, or opposition. I mean, like let's just take tampons in the boys' restroom, right? We want to oppose that law that was going through. We write a resolution, and then we could be part of the process to oppose that. Like, any kind of law, you could bring one up, and we can either write either opposition or support. The resolution allows us to do that. And it's a big statement to the community. It sets the tone. It sets the tone to our teachers, our staff, our parents. We are in support of making sure girls have fair opportunities and they have their safe spaces, right? That's what we would be saying. Policy would enforce it, and hopefully eventually we can make policy, but the statement is still there, and it lets us be the voice through the process of all this fighting. I hope I explained it clear enough. If not, please let me know.
Yeah, that was great. That makes
Oh,
sense.
somebody says, does it cost the district anything to financially do a resolution? No. And if it does, it's minimal. Like, let's just pretend our board secretary has to make a phone call or write a support letter. We all know how easy those things are. Somebody like me, who's the board president in this position, I would take it upon myself to write my own things. And then now if it's approved, I send it to our board secretary and our superintendent for fine tuning or changes. And then bam, we send it off, right? And making sure that we work in compliance with the policy or the resolution that we had supported. So cost, if anything, I don't know, the cost to a board secretary to send an email, minimal. Now sending me to Sacramento to testify, like what we did with AB 955, that would be a little different because then there's a plain cost, but it's still minimal in regards to being sued in, when a school, because let's be real, a mother of a girl can still sue our district, right? Whether we're going to win or not, we could still be sued for her daughter having that opportunity stripped away. It's a reality. And I pray to God, actually, it happens more and more, because
Yeah,
then
we need it.
we have things in law that needs to happen, guys. And you have obviously people on this informational meeting right now. We have advocates for faith and freedom, hint, hint. Go give them the opportunity to fight this good fight, right? I mean, a district can still get sued. It's going to cost us more to go to court and defend that, whether or not there's a California law or not. We still have to go defend ourselves in court. So
Yep.
the minimal cost of us sending a letter compared to a lawsuit that's very potentially right there, especially with everybody raising their voices right now and getting more involved, it's going to happen. It just matters. It really just is a matter of time of what district, right? So some district is going to lose a lot of money in this fight.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because of California and our legislators, but that's the reality of what's going to happen. We see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, and actually, Sonia, I want to just touch on that real quick, because that's such an important point. We have these school districts that are saying, we're complying with state law, we're complying with state law. But here you have Riverside School District that's now facing a lawsuit for quote unquote following state law, because they're violating federal law. And so what's going to end up happening is these school districts are going to spend a lot of money trying to defend themselves in these lawsuits. And not only that, once the federal government gets involved and these investigations begin, they face the real consequence of losing federal funding that funds these athletic programs, and that's going to affect the entire district, these students, these female athletes. And so it's really important to hold these school districts accountable. And they're going to face lawsuits, and so hopefully they're agreeing to comply with federal law, which is what they're required to do. So it's they're going to face lawsuits if they don't comply.
I'm going to give you another little hint. If you have a board majority that agrees with the situation, do you really think as a board majority they're going to fight the good fight to stop the lawsuit from going through? Let's be real. I could say on behalf of my own self, let's just, not in my official capacity, but as a mother who became a board member, if we were to get sued in Chino Valley, and we have a board majority that's very, very supportive of making sure that this gets changed at the local state level, right? Do you think our board's going to vote to really put in a lot of money and time to fight against that lawsuit? Or are we just going to be like, guys, we agree with you, sue us and let's get this done? Because I can't speak on behalf of the board because it's not in front of us, but I can say clearly, if you get the right people in the right positions, you're going to have less resistance when these things come up. That's just the truth and the reality of it. And that's what I'm trying to say. Get your board members that support common sense, and you will have less resistance. You'll have more help in these bigger fights. I hope I don't get myself
Perfect.
in trouble, but
Perfect. Well, I think that is a wrap. We went a little over an hour, but this was recorded. So we will be sure to post it. Please send it out to all of your people, so they're equipped with action steps. Thank you again for hopping on tonight, and we hope it was helpful in some way, shape, or form. Again, if there's any pending questions you have, you can just fill out that inquiry form, or I think an email was dropped in the chat. I'm not sure if you all can see it though, but info@faith-freedom.com is where you can also reach us just for any help. So I hope you all have a great night. And any closing remarks from Sonia or Julianne, you can go for it.
I would just say, fight the good fight. Please pray for protection for everybody in the fight. Be part of the solution, not just, being vocal. Ask where you can be helpful, and just ask God and give him your yes. We're going to win this. It's just a matter of time. And don't give up the hope. Our kids and their future, it depends on it. The video that you watched of our brave girls fighting this and actually being a voice, I've watched that video probably at least 6 times, and every time it brings tears into my eyes. I'm a mother of athletes, and this is exactly what needs to happen. My heart hurts for these girls, but these girls are going to become strong leaders in the world one day, and it's a beautiful thing. It sucks what's happening to them. We're going to try to prevent as much of that as possible. It's just a matter of time, guys. Please put the pressure. Diamonds are created under pressure. We know that the change is right there. It's just a matter of all of us doing what we have to do to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And as has already been shared, courage is contagious. And so it starts with, having these conversations and, not being afraid to speak up and to say, you know what, it's not okay for a boy to be on a girl's team. That's not okay. We're not okay with it. And so continue to be bold and, go to your school board meetings. I know there were some questions about, what if, I don't have a daughter that, is impacted by this. Really, that's where you can go to the school board meetings and start advocating for our female athletes. But thank you all for attending. Hopefully we'll be able to do more of these. But we're grateful for all of you and just the courage that it takes just to even begin having this conversation.
Lastly, I'll add in, if you don't have a Save Girls Sports shirt already, that's honestly even just a simple way you can start speaking, right? Just wearing this shirt to a sporting event or just around town. But if you don't have one, you can reach out to me on social media. Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm Jessica Tapia, and I can get you over Ryan Starling, the father of Taylor in our Save Girls Sport lawsuit, is the one who started pumping out these shirts, and he sold probably, I don't know, a couple thousand at this point, maybe more. There was one day that 500 students wore them to school in support of those girls. So the support is there, you guys. Again, it just takes 1 or 2 people vocalizing it and publicizing what is right, and the support will be there. You don't have to question that. But anyways, reach out to me. I'll get you the link to get yourself a shirt. And that's it. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
See
you.
you next time.